Hey there, thank you for tuning in to Bold Move Makers. And today I wanted to talk to you about you are only being tested. You're not crazy. And this message is not for everyone. I want to make that very clear because not everybody is going through a serious test or has been tested in the way that I'm going to talk about today. But I think it's important to share how the season of testing for some has become a part of their journey and how your testing is leading to a greater purpose in your life. And I don't often talk about current events or things that are happening because I tend not to speak on other people. But when I see something that is so closely aligned with experiences that myself or other people that may have gone through it have experienced, it's important to kind of paint a picture of the season that you're in and what it means and how you get through it and what it means on the other side. So when I talk about testing and the season that many of us may have faced a period in our life, you literally felt like you were going crazy. And I experienced a situation similar to what's in the news today, where somebody may have, gone through a psychosis, is how they will deem it, or have tried to harm themselves, or maybe you've gone through a situation where you thought you lost your mind. That's just the only way I can kind of paint it. And at some point, you may have even been admitted to a psych hold, or maybe you were admitted into a facility and, you had to be there for an extended amount of time because it was so dire. And for those of us that understand, spiritual battles, it can look like you're going crazy. And sometimes when you've lived a particular lifestyle and you're going from one season of your life to the other, it is a literal purging of old spiritual ways, old behaviors, and it can seem as if you're going crazy. You may have started to hear voices. You may have started to feel paranoia and anxiety. You may have lost your ability to cope with life. And for some of us, it was a crisis to the point to where we didn't know even who we were. And this purging of old self and old ways and old behaviors and habits had to be stripped from us. And that particular life that we are leaving and the new life that we're coming into, it required us to completely be reborn. And think about the period of time in which you've been incubated. Think of it like, a caterpillar, in a sense that they've been in a cocoon for so long. And that cocoon that they were in was a comfort. And when it's time to be born, you literally have to break through. The other way I can think about it is like a bird that's in a shell, a baby bird before it's born. That shell was, that lifeline. It was the place in which they were comfortable. And in order for them to come through to this new world, they had to literally break the shell in order to come into their new life as a bird that could fly and that had this new life. And that breakthrough is what people witness or experience as a spiritual awakening or a spiritual battle. And that battle is life that is being ripped from you, and you are forced into this time in which you have to break into this new life. And that's the best way I can describe it. But to the person that's going through it, you literally don't know who you are. You don't know your name. You don't know where you are. You're going through this period that you completely feel like yourself is going crazy. And those voices are speaking to you and talking to you in a negative way. And you're hearing all of your past, your guilt, your shame, your choices are all being lobbed and thrown at you. And in the word, it talks about the accuser of the brethren, and it is a literal accusatory, voices. And it's not just one voice, it's multiple voices. And that can be very, very alarming and distressing to the point to where there's no peace and no rest. And some people don't make it through this level of testing. And it is designed, in the only way I can think about it, to break you. And that breaking is traumatic. And I don't mean to get emotional, but even talking about it right now, that traumatic experience, it is such, an experience that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And a lot of people can't relate to it because their purpose in life doesn't necessarily require that level of breaking, or that level of breakthrough. And your family may have witnessed it, and they may have, talked about you. They may have just thought you were just crazy, and they talked in their group chats and things, and had their own, hypothesis of what was going on with you. And they broke it down to you being they've treated you probably like the black sheep, and they may not have even fully understood what you were going through. And all they could do was just, talk. And you, on the other hand, you witnessed it as them being against you. You witnessed it as them, turning their back on you. And in some cases, it may literally have been true. And when you go through a period in which your family or your friends don't understand where you are, who are you, what are you going through, they have no ability to reconcile that this is a spiritual battle and not a normal psychotic break. Right? They don't know that it's spiritual because you're experiencing it as a psychotic. But in true terms, if you think about it in a spiritual way, you can reconcile with it. Because if you've ever experienced something that's so out of the norm, out of, character for you. Maybe you were a very successful at one point in your life and you no longer had the ability to cope. And you had, always been the one that people relied on. And all of a sudden now they can't even trust what you're saying or doing. And you are paranoid and you are, experiencing life through this kind of a fog that you're in. And when you go through it, you don't recognize yourself. I keep saying that because when you're so put together, you've always been the one to be put together. And in this case, people knew you as a certain type of person, and all of a sudden now you are no longer that. And so they think you fell off, right? You fell off. You are no longer at your prime. This is the new you. And you're just trying to literally find any way to hold on to a semblance of reality. And reality is literally broken for you. If you've experienced it, or if you're going through it, or if you've been through it, you will see the other side of it for those that fight. And I think that at some points in which, you're being tested for your strength, you're being tested for your resilience, you're being tested for your ability to step out into the new version of you that God is literally calling you forth into the world, to stand taller, to be better, to live fully in Him, and remove the old you, that fake you, that you that's wearing mask, that you that has assimilated to the way that people think that you should be, the labels they put on you, the things that you have gone through in life has piled on these these personalities and characters that you've built. And so it's who you thought you were. But God already knew who he made you before the foundations of the world. But in order for you to come to the realization of who you are, you have to go through a breaking. And that breaking is the time in which it could go on for weeks. It could go on for months. For me, the breaking, the severity of it lasted for a year or more. And it almost felt as if I wasn't going to make it through. But deep down inside, I was crying and screaming out for God to be with me, to not leave me in this situation, to not let me die like this. And maybe you've been searching for a way to reconcile with it, and you don't know what to do. And for me, it was to fall on my knees and cry out to God and, not allow what people were saying about me to stop me from pressing in to who it was that God was calling forth. And sometimes you have to go it alone. Nobody can go through this breaking with you. You've got to go through it. It's you and God. And, I believe it was Jacob in the Bible who was known as the trickster. And he wrestled with God all night until he got the blessing. And if you can relate to that wrestling, in the night, experiencing things that aren't normal. People would call it, being possessed or paranormal types of things. And everybody may experience it differently, but I'm kind of painting a picture of the severity that some people may have gone through and others may not. But at the end of the day, if you have the will and you don't give up and you trust God that he will bring you through, you fall on your knees. You repent of the ways that you've lived that you didn't know, right? Some of you didn't know better. You didn't know that you had a greater calling on your life. You didn't know that you were supposed to be, doing something in the kingdom that was more than just going to work and taking care of the family and coming home. God has a purpose. And sometimes in order for that purpose to be birthed, that birth is not cute. Birth is not cute. Birth is hard. It's painful. It's traumatic. It's sweaty. It's just pain. And you experience the levels of pain that you never experienced before. But once the baby is born, you forgot all about the pain, right? You're looking at the baby and the baby is so cute and you forgot all about that you just went through. But in the moment, and you're going through those birth pains and you're going through the labor pains, that is traumatic. And so when people are experiencing these types of moments, these psychotic moments, it's spiritual. It's not just a physical ailment. It's not just a psychotic moment. It's a spiritual battle. And you've got to go through that battle. You have to be tested. You have to be reborn. And in order to do that, it looks very, from the outside looking in, it looks raggedy. And people will judge you at the level that they knew you, not knowing that even the greatest of those that God used were the most flawed people on the planet. None of us lives a life of perfection. And that's facts. None of us. If we started to pull back the curtain and open up your closet doors and start to look at what's beneath the surface, all of us are falling short of the glory. But those that have the purpose, that are called, they go through a serious series of testing. Look at Peter denying Christ, falling out with himself and believing that he was no longer chosen, and he went back to the old life that he had, and Jesus called him forth into the new life, and he became one of the most prolific disciples in the Bible, teaching and literally calling the sheep to Jesus. Paul killed people, and he had to be blinded on a road to Damascus, and he couldn't see. And Jesus called to him in that blind period where he was on his knees and didn't even have the ability to get up and walk. He said, "Why are you persecuting me?" And he had to go through that season of darkness and purging to be called forth. So just because it may look one way to you, in the world's terms, in God's kingdom, it looks like being called. So when you go through this, you are being called. Doesn't mean that you're going to go and preach on a pulpit. It doesn't mean that your life is going to look the same. Everybody has a different calling. Everybody has a different purpose. But nonetheless, the journey for some is harder than others. The journey for some is more highly visible than others. So don't doubt that the calling and the journey to the purpose that you're being led to it's not supposed to be easy. And I can only speak from it in hindsight. When you're going through it, you have no idea that you're going to make it through. So trust the process that God is taking someone through. Pray for them. Don't judge that they are a lost cause, because if there is such thing as a lost cause, then the work that Christ did on the cross, it's for nothing. God has mercy for all. And we've got to start living like we believe that. Yes, the worst person in the world and all the people that are doing bad things and all of this stuff. Yes, there are some that will never change. There are some that will not hear the word. There are some who refuse to do better. There are some that have done the most heinous things in prison for it. Drug selling and all this other stuff, right? But God can redeem. And if we truly believe that, as believers, we need to understand how some people's journeys look different than we expected. And even the messy middle of who they were to who they're breaking forth to become may not look like what we understand. And we don't have to. God knows. And as long as we, as the ones going through it, understand that God will see you through. He will take you through. He says he's close to the broken. And you're being broken. So trust that there's a greater purpose for your life. Know that, yes, even this too shall pass. And believe. Have faith. Don't lose heart. Don't lose hope. Press in harder. Pray even harder. Seek him in the night, in the day. Go into that secret place and let him bring out of you what he's bringing out. Let him purge, the things that he wants to purge. And you'll see that in due season, you're going to come out stronger for it. I know that was a little heavy, but it was on my heart. And I thought that I would just share. And I hope that it blesses someone. And it may help paint a different picture or light on what other people may be going through. You may hear of others that are going through, these situations, and hopefully it paints a picture that you'll understand. All right. So, until next time, God bless you. Be sure, like, share, and subscribe, and see you next one.